guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Other Girls Club podcast. We are back in the studio and we have a guest with us here today. Please welcome to the podcast, Ali Bromley.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Ali Bromley is the winner of Big Brother in 2024, forensic psychologist, ADHD and neurodiversity advocate and queer icon. We've got her in the studio today to talk about her experience on Big Brother, her passion for mental health awareness, and navigating the world after reality TV. So welcome, Ali. Before we started, we were both literally just like, wait, why are we nervous? And then we sat here for ages being like, no, wait, we're both nervous
And
now.
then I made you nervous by being like, I'm really nervous now.
Yeah, I was like, well, if you're nervous, I'm nervous. I'm just such an empath, you know, I'm feeding off your emotions. So how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, got lost multiple times on the way here, but made it.
That's fine.
On time.
It's fine because I was on brand running late anyway. So I'm late for everything. I'm trying to be better, but I'm just still running late for everything. So I was like, oh, don't even worry about it.
No, the relief I got when I saw your message being like, I'm going to be a bit late. I was like, thank God.
You're like, thank God for that because I am as well. Question we ask everyone on the show, what have you been watching lately?
So just for a bit of light entertainment, really, I just switched into I Kissed a Boy last night. I did fall asleep, so I can't give you any reliable feedback about it other than the fact I saw them all walk in. They look fabulous. Mm-hmm. That's about as far as I got. Okay. But I'll try again today.
I saw the first season of that.
Yeah.
I didn't watch I Kissed a Girl. I don't know where I was when it came out.
Where were you?
Clearly not on the radar because I feel like it really just passed me by. I don't know, maybe the marketing wasn't directed at, which is all right. If the marketing for I Kissed a Girl is not directed at me, something is going wrong.
Yeah. where was it missing you?
I missed the whole thing, but yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll do I Kissed a Girl and then I'll go into the new season of I Kissed a Boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first season I remember being really entertaining. I remember more just being like, I was like, oh, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Before.
I liked I Kissed a Girl. They had some really sweet conversations about how they identify, how comfortable they are with the terminology. It was a bit more than a dating show, I think.
Yeah.
Although, of course, there was all the drama and stuff as well.
Yeah, which, you know, you love we love in moderation, but also, like, it's nice to have those little bits where you're like, oh, that's a good conversation to see on national TV.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need those conversations now more than ever, maybe even more than we did so 2 years ago.
Absolutely. There was some real moments of vulnerability, I think, that were well worthy of the airtime that they took up.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of everything gay, we obviously met at the Gay Awards.
We did.
It feels like ages ago now.
It does. It was March, wasn't it? So it was a little while ago. Yeah.
I was like, it was January. I've got no concept of time whatsoever. We obviously met at the Gay Awards. And do you know what was really funny is I was sitting there and but it was by the point in the night where I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And I think at one point I was talking to Days. Yeah. Lovely Days. We know and love Days. And then I think you came past and I clocked you early in the night and I was like, oh, that's Ali from Big Brother. Because I don't even know if I told you this. I was a huge fan of yours when you were on Big Brother. Me and my manager Katrina as well, we were just like, we would always be in like, we have like obviously a work group chat, but then when it's obviously like 9 p.m, 10 p.m, we're not in the work group chat, we were like separate chat where we were like, we were talking like, Ali's doing so well, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I was always in every group chat to being like, we need to make sure Ali wins. But so when I clocked you at this awards, I was like, oh my God, that's Ali. And then you came past and you were like, I can't remember what you said. You was like, oh, I love your content, something like that. And I was just like,
I know. So yeah, because I walked past you and I did a double take because I recognised you and I was like, oh, that's Sophie. But then you were looking at me as if you knew who I was. And I was like,
I did.
That's weird. Like, how does she know who I am? And then we just had this moment where we're like, I know you. And then we had a chat when I was hiding in a corner later on, I think.
Yeah. I think you were like, do you want to go to the secret corner for a quiet chat? Because it was a good night, but it was obviously a loud night.
Yeah, it was a bit overwhelming.
And I was like, I'm very down for secret corner chat time.
Yeah. But then that little corner became quite crowded because then everybody started to do the same thing.
It did, because obviously we went off for like a private chat in the corner and it kind of felt like everyone was just kind of joining and everyone was lovely. So I was like, more than welcome, but this is getting like overstimulating now. Yeah. Talking about your time on Big Brother, because I feel like you went through, and they always describe it as like a whirlwind, don't they, when you go on a show like this? And I don't know, maybe if that's how like you feel that you've experienced it. Let's just talk about Big Brother in general. First of all, what was it about Big Brother that made you want to apply to it and go onto it?
Mixed reasons, I think. I'd obviously watched it on and off over the years, not religiously. I didn't realise that Big Brother had such a stan culture and that people are really, really so invested. But I'd been interested since it first came out. I'd watched different seasons. I watched last year's as well. And I'd always sort of joked about applying, like, oh, I'll apply to Big Brother, and not really thought too much about it. And then one of the reasons that I spoke about was that sometime after my brother died, I was thinking to myself, I need to do something or things in my life to bring joy, have new experiences, and just put myself out there, because I was just kind of rotting and existing. So I was trying to do something to have fun and have good stories. So I went away in April last year. I did some hiking out in Nepal. I hiked at Everest Base Camp, and I came back and I was like, what now? What now? And this advert
what
popped
do you do
up.
after Mount Everest? You know, like, what do you do after that?
Yeah, and this advert popped up. I think it was on Instagram, and I just thought, oh, okay. And then I was thinking about applying, and you have to do a video, which obviously is like a logistical nightmare to plan to do something like that. And I was thinking, oh, I need to do my hair, I need to do my makeup, blah, blah, blah. And in the end, I didn't do any of those things. I just scraped my hair back, no makeup, just as I was one day, being like, put me on the show, hi. Like, that was basically my audition video. And then I started moving through the stages and I got on. But those were kind of the reasons why I entered. It was a bit of a off the cuff kind of, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. I feel like when you make decisions like that, sometimes it can be like the best thing you've ever done. Like, I have recently made a decision like that, and I'm going to cut out telling you what it is because it is a surprise, but I'm going to tell you because I've got a big ego. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But I've recently made that decision where I'm like, I'm going to do this huge thing, and I'm like, I'm doing it just because I want a challenge, and because I want something to kind of shake up. Because a bit like you, I think I've been in that same space this year where I'm like, I'm not unhappy, but I'm kind of just sort of going through life,
something to work towards,
yeah,
something big.
I'm just kind of bouncing from thing to thing, and I kind of want something that's really gonna make me work towards something.
Yeah.
But obviously, like for Big Brother, like you were like, I want something to chase joy. I want something to, you know, shake up your life a little bit. Also, I just love that you came off that base camp in the pool and you were like gonna do Big Brother.
I got home, I was like, what now? And that was it.
Well, now Big Brother, but it does have such a big stan culture. I will, like, me and my old flatmate Dan, my best friend Dan, we will constantly watching like combinations of like iconic Big Brother moments.
Oh, God.
Because I grew up with it, and my dad, like, we always had it on in our house. My dad absolutely loves it, especially the earlier seasons where it was,
they were fun.
Yeah, like a proper like social experiment.
Yeah,
because it was, and people had never seen anything really like that on TV before.
And that's what piqued my interest. I'm interested in psychology. We watched it during A-level psych classes at one point. They were showing it to us as like a real human experiment.
My psych classes were not that interesting. Oh my God.
So I really took it very literally that this is a human experiment, and that would be like fun to do.
Yeah.
So.
And was it as fun as you thought it might be when you actually got on there? Because obviously I think with any show or with anything in life, the idea of doing it and the experience of doing it are normally two very different things. And sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad. Sometimes that can be neutral. Was it different when you actually got on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wasn't very happy in there, and I didn't have the best time. There were moments of fun. I enjoyed doing the tasks. I enjoyed dressing up. I loved getting to know Dean, Days, Martha, Izzaz, Lily, of course. You know, there were moments that were like just so fun. But I found it really difficult. And overall, I didn't have the best time. But I would never say I regret doing it. Absolutely. It's given me what I wanted, which was a great story, something that I can talk about for years to come. And the experiences that I've had since I've come out the house have been really worth it. Yeah. But yeah, it didn't match up with my expectations.
Yeah, the expectations of doing it are very different to actually being on there. And I think because I've always thought about, I think every queer person has this thought where they see Big Brother on TV and they go, I could do that. Yeah. But the older I've got, I go, I could not do that, because I try not to be. But the thing is, I am a little bit of a princess. And every day I see the morning lights go on when you guys get woken up at the same time every day. And I think I would be the biggest diva in the
There's
world.
so many clips of me just sitting there like blurry eyed, like, no.
I think I would make Nikki Graham look like an angel, because I really think there are certain things I'm like, I wouldn't tolerate that.
Yeah.
And I think like, obviously when you're in that house and you're in that experience, it is constant. We watch it for an hour a day. So we get to see the bits that obviously just make the best TV.
Yeah.
But you're in that house and you're living through it 24 hours a day, all day.
Yeah.
And there might be, even if there's like tensions in the house or whatever it is, in real life, you might go away, have a breather, have a cup of tea, whatever it is, something that comes to you, and you come back to it and you realise, oh, it's not that deep, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But when you're in the house, obviously you're in it and there's nowhere you can go.
Things escalate, and then I think other people talk about whatever it is, whatever conflict that's happening, and then that makes it 10 times bigger, and then that sort of provokes more conversation between you and the person that's having conflict, because then everyone's talking about it and you feel like you have to go up to them and be like, this is how I feel, because anxieties about Chinese whispers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, not being able to get away from people that you're not getting along with is probably the worst part of it.
Because it's just, you know, you think I just need half an hour away from you and I might come back feeling a lot better. Ironically, I felt similar when I was in rehab. I was in like spinal rehab. And there'd be times where I'd be really going through it on the day and I'd just think, I just need half an hour to sit on my own, have a coffee. But you would constantly have well-meaning nurses, doctors, HCAs, other patients around you. And I remember saying to my dad, I was like, I feel like I'm in Big Brother, but without none of the fun of the tasks and the trials. It's just being watched constantly. That's the only part of it.
Sounds so difficult.
Yeah. And I just said to him, I was like, if I just had, like, there were sometimes where I would act out of character, I'd get really annoyed at things that I wouldn't normally. And I think I would say to my dad, if I just had a day to myself, I think I would feel completely differently and I wouldn't be so irate or so, you know, so much of a diva. I was like, but there is no room to breathe. There is no room to escape. And everything feels so much bigger than what it probably is.
Yeah.
But there's that side of it. And then there's obviously, was there still moments where it was, you had some fun? Obviously you said you like doing the tasks, the trials, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun.
Is that where you got the joy from?
Yeah.
Because obviously that's what you said you went into the house for. It was the joy.
But even the task, you know, obviously what they show versus what's happening is very different. A task day, you know, you get 3 minutes of a task on television. That would be maybe more than 10 hours for us. And then we'd be waiting sometimes in our costumes 3-4 hours for the next part of the task to start. So it's a lot of boring stuff as well.
Yeah. I think I just watched the recent celebrity one. I don't know if we watched it, but I watched that one. And I think there was one task with the pirate one. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Where I think Chris Hughes and Jack Shepherd got really annoyed, I think, because they had basically been on watch for ages.
Yeah, and it would have been hours and hours and hours.
That makes sense now because like we see them on watch for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But they've been waiting for hours and hours.
And
then when other people don't do their part or, you know, whatever, and things don't align, you can kind of understand, well, yeah, I understand why they're mad now.
Yeah.
And the consequence is you don't get that luxury shopping budget, which just adds more tension to the house. But the task, everyone, like, obviously they have their moments of being fun, but I feel like the friendship you've made in the house is really strong. We always see you hang out with Lily, Days, Dean.
Yeah.
I met all of them at the Gay Awards as well.
Yeah,
I remember
when
I clocked you, I was on the next table and I was just like,
it's all of them.
I said, that's all of them together. I was like,
drinking.
I was like, it feels like Pokemon Go for me. I'm like, I'm just going to go try and like collect them all. I was like, I need to go see these people. But I feel like you've built some really strong friendships there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like it's one thing to get on when you're all in a environment where like you have to get along, but you're all in forced proximity.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since the show now, and you guys are still hanging out.
Still hanging out. So I'm seeing Dean on Thursday. We're going to get some lunch, and I saw Izaz last week. I do a FaceTime with Lily every day, usually at unusual times or unsociable hours, but that's all good. Days, we went to the beach the other week. Yeah, these are really good friendships, and it's so funny because seems to have been a bit of a narrative about me as someone who didn't get on with anyone, like blanket statement. And I've read stuff about me that because I had conflict with one or two people, the narrative is Ali didn't get on with anyone, and if she's the one that didn't get on with everyone, then she's the common denominator. And I'm kind of like, well, I have all these friendships that I really value that I've carried with me now for 6 months. I'm not sure where this story came from, but there's loads of stories out there about me that aren't true. So it's just another one to add to the list.
Yeah. And I feel like as well, people are so quick to jump on to, oh, Ali had this disagreement, or like anyone that this person had this disagreement or this negative thing, whereas they'll completely look aside all the times that you might have really managed a tense situation really well, or all of the good friendships that you have, or all of the fun moments that you have, and they just see those moments where it's not a good moment for you and that you're at your worst. But speaking about people having like opinions on you and narratives about you, I think you must have the patience of a saint because sometimes I will read through your comments, particularly on TikTok.
Oh God, don't go to them.
Oh my God. There was one comment in particular. I think I it was Dan I sent it to, and I just went, the way that like, oh my God, if this was me, like I could not deal with it. I think there was one person. So a lot of comments I see about you, I see you get called stuck up a lot, which I think is hilarious because I think just knowing you and even seeing you on the show, I wouldn't have got that opinion. But I do think people say that about a woman who carries herself a certain way. And I feel like you carry yourself, what is the word that I'm looking for? When it comes to conflict, you're not quick to shout, argue, and carry yourself in that way, but you want to try and have a conversation
Yeah.
and trying to solve the issue. And somehow that has been turned into you're stuck up. You think you're better than
I
people.
think I'm superior. But I think people would say that about any woman who is outspoken, who is articulate or well-spoken. Then the idea then is that you're superior because you're not speaking on the same level as other people who are maybe, you know, resorting to cheap digs or mocking or some other way to have a conflict. And I was thinking about this actually when I saw the list of questions that you sent me that we might be thinking about on the podcast. And I thought, do you know what? This is like really, it's worked for me and it's worked against me, that I was quite a palatable villain in the house, because when I'm disagreeing with somebody, I'm not cussing or swearing or belittling them. I'm saying how I feel and I'm saying I'm not cool with that. And that's it. And I don't then run off and talk for hours and hours on end. Obviously, I have some debriefs with friends or whatever, but the words that I use during conflict are airable. So you saw a lot of my conflict. But, you know, there are other arguments that were not shown. There are other things, comments that were shown that could not be aired because they just simply wouldn't meet broadcasting standards. So I'm an airable, palatable villain that could be shown, which means that I look like a troublemaker a lot of the time. But there was a lot of stuff that happened that just wasn't shown. And I realised about 4 or 5 weeks in, when I was kind of tearing my hair out at times, and I went into the diary room and I said to them, I know you're not airing some of this stuff because I'm listening to it feeling horrified and these people are still in the house, which means you're not showing everything that's being said. And
How interesting.
And then I realised when they kept, you know, staying in that that's what was happening.
Yeah, because they know, you know, they're not airing it because that's going to go against Ofcom or whatever it is that, as you said, the broadcasting standards.
I'm not sure if it's fully that. And I think I have really mixed feelings about it because everyone talks about, oh, this Big Brother conspiracies, you know, they're highly editing or they're doing this, they're doing that. Well, I don't know that the producers are specifically with, you know, an agenda to stitch anyone up or anything like that. You know, basic powers of critical reasoning, they have 24 hours to cut down into 42 minutes. That's the first thing. What are you going to pick up? You're going to pick up a storyline that follows a thread. So maybe a quick spat between people won't get aired. But if it's something that the house picks up and the house talks about it, it will get aired. But certainly there were things that that were not shown. And when I came out of the house, one of the conversations that I had in my debrief was, look, we know you didn't get on with this person. We know you didn't get on with this person. We can't tell you what you will or will not talk about on social media. We'd prefer it if you didn't, because there are things we didn't air for a reason and we have a duty to protect these people. So I came away from that thinking, okay, I'm going to enter all my interviews diplomatic as I can. I won't talk about anything that wasn't included in the show because I can safely talk about, you know, some of my conflict with Khaled or Marcello in as little detail as possible because it's already out there. What I won't do is furnish that with, well, this happened and it wasn't shown, and this happened, it wasn't shown, this happened, it wasn't shown, because that's not fair. It's only going to create more conflict, more trolling for these people that have a right to move on with their lives peacefully. And that was how I moved away from the show. And obviously, you know, 6 months down the line, one of the few people that's done that, and everybody else has been talking a lot about me. And now I'm kind of looking back like, you know, I had to make a choice. Do I stay quiet and hope that it goes away, or do I start retaliating? And that's been quite a difficult balance of, do you know what, I'm just going to sit this one out and hope that they get bored. But all I will say for people that are confused about why I didn't get on with people is that there's a lot of stuff that didn't get shown. Yeah. And I have to live with that. And I have to live with people forming judgments about me now based on reactions where you can't always see what I'm reacting to.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think it's obvious when you say it out loud, but I think we forget just how much we have a tiny little snapshot, and there is like a whole big picture behind everything else that you and everyone else experienced in the house. And as you say, that's 24 hours of footage because it's constant. It's a live stream. There is a live stream if people wanted to watch it. I know loads of people were watching it for the celebrity one this year, but there is a live stream and there is 24 hours of footage cut down to 42 minutes. That is an insane amount. And I really feel for you being in that position where you think like, I've got to decide to make this decision to protect my own peace. Yeah. And how do I want to proceed with this? And I've been in scenarios of that before, like completely different and on a much, much smaller scale where I have to decide, okay, do I want to go to head with this brand? Do I want to fight this brand who, let's be honest, has the resources and the money to crush me if they wanted to?
Yeah.
Or do I want to protect my own peace and move forward? But then that means not everyone has the full context of me and my story. And something that I really have to consistently tell myself, being very public facing on social media, is not everyone needs context to everything.
Yeah.
And not everyone needs or deserves context to the reason why I behave. And I feel like that's something where you've really had to decide to make that decision on how to proceed. It's a hard decision to make.
And I thought to myself, you know what, there are really some of the criticisms that I have, there's really simple answers to them. But a lot of that would mean throwing someone else under the bus to save myself. And I'm just not comfortable with that, regardless of whether we're friends now or not friends now, or whether there's been conflict in the past. I'm just not comfortable with the idea of point scoring in the public domain. And there has been a cost to that for me, which is that I've had to sit quietly and let people troll me.
Yeah. And I feel like that says so much about who you are and your integrity as a person, though, because there are some people who would happily throw people under the bus if it meant gaining a point here or there in the public domain, because that is kind of what it feels like when you're thinking about public approval. And I don't know if you felt like that, or you could kind of see people behaving in that way when you're on the show, when you're off the show. It's like a constant kind of battle of like point scoring, whether it's conscious or subconscious, because any little thing that you do, intentionally or unintentionally, is either winning or losing people. And that's such a weird way to live life.
Yeah. And I just thought, you know what, forget Big Brother, forget these conflicts. I felt a bit torn because I thought actually there's a story in here that's important to tell about how women are treated, about how queer women are treated, about how misogyny operates and how group dynamics form. And those conversations are valid, but you can't have those conversations within the context of Big Brother without singling out individuals. And that doesn't feel fair and it doesn't feel okay. If it was something that would help people on a wider scale, great, maybe there is room for it. I don't know that I've seen that opportunity or something that I would want to do necessarily. But what I decided in my own mind was, if I am going to have a public platform and I'm going to stay, you know, with open social media accounts, I'm just going to move forward as myself, and people will either take me or leave me, and that's fine. And maybe there's no point in taking up individuals with individual criticisms of me, individual troll comments, and saying, actually, I'm not like that, or I am like this, or I'm not like that. Maybe if I just move forward as myself, then people will see for themselves, and that's okay. That's all I can do.
Yeah, I think that is generally the best way of dealing with it. And I think, I don't know if there's a lot of people might think, yes, that's the best way of dealing with it. But when you're feeling the impact of people's comments, it's one thing to know that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
It's another thing to actually action it and to sit quiet.
Yeah. And for me, I'm like, so much of the trolling, I just don't care. Like, it will not hurt me. It will not impact me. I've been through worse in my life. I'm not going to be upset about, oh, you know, her hair looks crap here or whatever. Like, it's just not going to affect me at all. There are some things that people have said that hurt me because they're so against what I believe morally or ethically, and that's hard because you're like, well, I've lived my whole life specifically with whatever this thing is, trying to be like the best version of myself, trying to educate myself, trying to be a good friend, a good ally, you know, a good colleague, and then you get accused of something that falls in sort of stark contrast to that. It can be a bit hurtful, but 90% of trolling is noise. And I think when you realise that sometimes if they can't find something to troll you for, they just make something up. That's when you realise, okay, you know what? I'm not in my DMs. I'm not in my comment sections. Very occasionally I'll get bored and look at my TikTok comments, and occasionally I'll feed the trolls. Just a little bit for light entertainment. But on the whole, I'm not looking at anything. There's a couple of people that follow me that I talk to quite regularly. Other than that, I'm not looking for negativity, and I don't see stuff unless I go looking for it. Because I realised that actually, even if you were to correct one allegation or one criticism, people would then just make stuff up. I had people, you know, in my comment sections at one point direct quoting me about things, words that have never left my mouth or I never would leave my mouth. You know, whole streams of text around all sorts of speculation about me. I apparently had a child at one point that I abandoned to go on Big Brother, you know. And when you acknowledge the fact that people will just make up shit to be angry with you about, then you realise there's no point engaging with any of it.
Yeah. And that's a really good point what you said there about, like, if you're looking for negativity, you're going to find it.
Yeah.
And I think especially on social media, it is, well, I mean, it's a very well-known fact now that like engagement farming and outrage is like a huge thing that people do, because there's a lot of engagement in it and there's a lot of money in it as well.
Right.
People make so much money off creating outrage, and a lot of that does come with making people angry, making people upset, because
driving the engagement up.
Exactly, because that drives, it's easier to drive engagement through outrage, anger and upset than it is through positivity,
right?
Or, you know, simple positive or even neutral feelings. It's
God, how depressing is that?
It's really depressing. And do you know what as well? There's actually a really good film, and it's a Christmas film. It's Spirited. I think it's Spirited. But the one of the guys who's on the naughty list for that year's Christmas, he's on the naughty list because he uses engagement farming and outrage in the news.
No way.
And it's, do you know what? It's just a good Christmas film, but also I remember watching it thinking, this is actually really politically attuned. Like,
there's something in there that's really worth listening to, isn't there? I think.
Exactly, yeah. And I think like when you've got a show as huge as Big Brother, there are people who are going to take that opportunity to take that platform and to take that attention and use it in ways that are the opposite of what sit right with you. And I think you just have to take the decision to go, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do, or I know at least how I want to conduct myself, and I have to move forward with that.
Yeah.
And obviously there are, as you say, there's so many people who are either they're in your comments or they're making things up about you, and they are like, they don't like you for whatever reason it is. Maybe you had a slightly funny look on your face too early in the morning. It might be the smallest little things, right? But there are also tons of people who love you, and there are tons of people who loved you from the minute you stepped on and it was your VT tape of who you are. And that might be because they find you funny, they like your bluntness, they like your critique on things, or maybe some people saw themselves in you. I know there were tons of people, there was tons of queer women who I saw just being like, okay, Ali Twim. Like 2 seconds into your VT, just I think like every lesbian and queer woman across the country was just like, okay, that's my winner. And I remember us being in the flat being like, because we're rooting for her, right? I was like, good, we're all on the wavelength with that. But there are so many people, and I think it can be easier to kind of get absorbed in that negativity. And I think it's harder to focus and say like, okay, but there are people who support me, who root for me, and who see themselves in me. And do you kind of feel like you have been able to feel that from your side of things since being in the house? Did you feel that? Did you feel the support?
Not in the house. No, I thought I was hated, and I couldn't understand why I was surviving evictions. And then I was told that I was being kept in for a hate watch. So that was making me really anxious about coming out. And then on the eviction nights, they play the crowd noise into the house and you can hear cheers or boos. I was listening so hard. When I've watched it back, I can hear that the crowd noise is loud and people were cheering for me, but I didn't hear all of that in the house. I heard a bit of a cheer, so I knew I wasn't getting booed. And that was okay. That was really reassuring. But I had no idea how much of a positive reception there would be. And we've joked about my TikTok comments that they're really bad, but my Instagram...
But everyone's is on TikTok as well.
Yeah, it's like, a weird space.
It's, especially if you get beyond your audience. Even with Instagram, as long as I'm in my audience, I know I'm generally
My Instagram
fine.
is a safe space. My DMs are lovely. I don't get people contacting me directly to say negative things. I have so many messages. I haven't been able to go through all of my DMs because when I came out of the house, my inbox just got absolutely flooded, but I've looked at as many as I possibly could. And they were so nice and so supportive. And more importantly than the support they offered for me, they were highlighting the fact that they saw someone on TV that was like them, that they could align with. And I've had young girls message me saying that they've been able to come out to their families because they could point to someone on TV that was normal and say, that's what I am, and that was a really helpful tool to use with their families. I've had people say that, can relate to some of my experiences as someone who's neurodivergent, and that was really powerful for them. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm still out there with a public platform for these people, because I'm like, okay, that's important then, and representation is important, and people do need to see people who look and act and sound like them, and that's worthwhile. So
because it is such a big platform, Big Brother, and it goes out, what I think is really important with Big Brother in particular is it goes to the general population. Because I could sit on Instagram all day and preach about queer rights, trans rights, disabled rights, and everything under the sun, and I would have 90% of people go, yep, Cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's common sense to me. But there might be some people in the general population who've just never thought about it.
Yeah.
Maybe just because it is a topic that has just never encountered them in their everyday life, or, you know, because they're too busy focusing on other things, work, you know, paying the mortgage, doing whatever. And they sit down to watch Big Brother, and it might be the first time they're confronted with a topic. And there's been multiple times over the years with Big Brother where I have, like, you know, maybe not learnt about things, but where things have come up and it's made me think about, oh, I'd never thought about that before, or, you know, like that. And I feel like that is such an important point, where it's going to the general population. You're getting outside of your usual bubble. Yeah. And that, you know, and that's really, really important, what makes the show so important. I feel like I've said important so much. I'm like, think of another word, Sophie, come on.
I guess the point is we can find ourselves in echo chambers.
Yes.
And we can talk about things that matter to us, and we can use our platforms to raise awareness, but often we're talking to people who already agree with us. And I guess Big Brother gives you just a little window to show people with different thoughts and feelings out to the wider population, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
I was going to say world, but it's not. It's world. Few people in England.
It's a lot of people in England. Sometimes I'll get messages when I'm like posting about watching Big Brother from like American followers being like, because I don't think they have Big Brother over there, but I don't know if they watch it in the same way, or
no,
here it seems
and they
to
can't
be...
get ours. I had quite a lot of messages saying that they downloaded a VPN and were trying to watch, and people in Australia too. I was like, okay. Messages from South Africa have been like, yeah, go Ali.
That's
like,
really cool,
okay.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But you said earlier on as well about how with the show, what people were being able to see was the way that not only women are treated on the show, or it's a reflection of how I think a lot of women feel they're treated in real life.
Yeah.
And the perceptions we have on women.
Yeah.
But more so, that experience narrows when you're a queer woman, especially when you're a neurodiverse woman as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, being in the house, you're in there as a queer woman, as a neurodiverse woman. Did you feel like your experience was different because of those intersections? Or do you feel like sometimes some of the things that you'd experienced, maybe some of the either positive or negative ones, do you feel like maybe it was a consequence of like the intersections you find yourself falling into?
Yeah, I mean, I have to acknowledge that I occupy a position of enormous privilege. I'm a white woman, I'm well educated, I can navigate the world that I live in quite easily day to day. And actually some of the difficulties that I encountered in the Big Brother house probably were so hurtful and difficult because I move in circles in the outside world where I'm protected from those kinds of experiences. You know, we were discussing before the pod, you know, spending time in queer spaces that feel automatically safe, and actually not being in spaces where you feel uncomfortable, because in our everyday life we're seeking out those safe spaces. But I think for me, the first difficulty, I think, thinking about neurodivergence was going into the house and feeling overwhelmed. I've spoken about that a lot on other podcasts as well, and suddenly going quiet. And I thought, shit, no one's going to like me. No one's going to want to talk to me because I'm quiet. And they're so loud and they're so vibrant and bouncy and bubbly and out there. And I can't bloody speak. Like I couldn't make myself, you know? And so I was finding like a couple of safe people to talk to. And initially the house was sectioned off. We weren't all put in together. And I was getting on okay with the guys at that point in time, particularly Izaz. But Khaled and Shegan as well, we were getting on fine. And then the rest of the house came in. And then I felt even more overwhelmed and kind of lost some of the connections that I'd initially started to form. So I think, and to be fair, some of the feedback that I had from other housemates, like further down in the series, was, oh, I wrote you off as boring initially. Like I didn't really want to talk to you. And I knew I was not being spoken to because there were people that obviously I had conflict with. That's clear. It was in the show. But there were also people that I just didn't talk to. And I didn't know how to talk to them. And they weren't talking to me. And they already had their friendship groups formed. So I didn't know how to approach them. Mm-hmm. And a couple of people did say to me later on, like, oh, you're so much better now. It's like night and day. What do you think was holding you back before? And I was like, did try to say that I feel really overwhelmed and I'm like struggling to make connections here. So I think that's where the kind of neurodivergent aspect came in mainly, was just the overwhelm at the beginning and the struggling to make connections, which I did make as I went along.
It just took a bit of time.
Yeah, it just took a bit of time. And I think that's a reflection of society, right? And I noticed that in the most recent series of Celebrity Big Brother as well, that quiet people are, you know, people are so distrusting of them and so cautious around them and think they're boring and write them off. And there's all this conversation about this person sat by and they're just watching everything that's happened or happening. They're not talking about how to include them or how to bring them in. That really stands out for me. And I noticed it on the Celebrity Big Brother as well, when they were talking about Jack Shepherd and him being quiet. And I was thinking, that again, there's no conversation about how to be inclusive for people who might actually just start off a bit like that. But if you give them a chance, they might warm up and be fine.
Offer him a cup of tea, you know?
Yeah. He loved tea.
He loved a cup of tea.
He would have drunk tea out of a pet bowl. So that would have been a great conversation starter.
Just say to him, I'm making a cup of tea. Do you want me to make you one? Come sit with us.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, finding the ways of like, you're taking that time to notice something someone has an interest in and include them. Yeah. Bring it into your space.
Especially if you know you're part of a majority group and there's somebody else that's an outlier. You know, it's easier for you then in that situation to extend a hand and be a bit welcoming. So that, I think, was my first experience, which did follow through to varying degrees. But I suppose the other experience I had was, and I don't know how much to say about it because I'm nervous now about restarting online feuds. But I suppose for me, there was a feeling that initially there was interest in me that I thought was genuine and that I thought was friendly, and with an intention to build a connection that we could have a friendship. And I did feel that interest in me died a death when I came out as queer with some of the people in the house, and that was really hard. And then I was left feeling that, you know, some of my interactions had not been genuine with people that initially I felt quite connected to and felt quite warm towards. And I thought, in the diary room, Big Brother asked me, do you think these people are homophobic? Listed the people, and I said, actually, no, I don't. Although my view of that might have changed slightly because I've seen, since I've come out of the house, I've seen content that has made me question that belief. But in the house, I felt like this wasn't so much about homophobia because I come out as queer. It was about me losing my value as a woman now that I'm not sexually available.
You're not a prospective mate, so to speak. Like, to put it in animal terms, that's because that is somehow people's brains operate, you know, like that interest in you felt, because you can always feel it, can't you, as a woman, when someone's interested in you, like a switch, off,
gone.
And
you know, my first impressions when I first walked in was like, these guys are they're quite laddie, but I'm like really getting on with them, and I don't always get on with laddie lads in the outside world, but they were so sweet and attentive and opening doors and being polite and inquiring, and then it just vanished. So I was left feeling a bit like those initial interactions were not genuine, and then I've been slammed for, you know, accusing some people of not being that authentic, but that was my experience. That was how I felt. And I think as the series developed, that was evidenced. You know, there was admissions by those people that was maybe what was happening indirectly. But I don't know that it was conscious, and I don't think it was intentional. I think it's part and parcel of your experience as a woman, particularly a queer woman. And, you know, the world that I move in outside of Big Brother is such that I don't get any male attention. I'm not out at bars or straight bars. I never have to deal with those kinds of interactions that are a bit uncomfortable, or maybe there's things happening that are not being said or spoken about. People in my outside world life are just very transparent and straightforward. You know, colleagues, friends, we get along, that's it. I don't have to deal with those tricky dynamics of meeting somebody new and having them assess whether I have any value in the room or not, you know.
And it's really weird as well, especially when you're not in those circles or in those sort of dynamics. You don't experience that a lot in, like, you know, your everyday life. Because I would say I don't either. I'm predominantly around other queer people. I'm predominantly around gay men, to be honest with you. And the only straight men I see are really in my family. I have an odd couple of, you know, straight friends for straight male friends, but I'm not in those circles where I'm being assessed in that way. And if I am, sometimes maybe I'll go to a social setting and I can feel it happening. It is such an alien feeling, especially because I think I feel it on the levels of, I experience it as a queer woman as well. People can't compute queerness and disability. So when I'll mention, you know, if you mention like a she, her pronoun, someone's going to look like, oh, are you queer? If they don't already know. Someone's how they don't know, I don't know, but you know, whatever. And they're like, oh, saying that when we were at the Gadio was, you turned around to me and went, are you queer? And I was like, yes, Ali. I was like, did you not know this?
I'm so sorry. I was one of
like,
those
I need
people.
to queer it up.
Yeah. You're like, I got a nose ring. What more do you want from me?
You don't say that.
I'm doing my best.
I'm doing my best, Ali. It was easier when I had bleached eyebrows because everyone was like, "Oh, that's weird. That's queer," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's my coding," you know. But yeah, I experienced it on different levels of like because of disability, and then also because of the queerness as well. And those are two intersections which really people can't compute in their heads,
Yeah.
which is because of all different kinds of ableism. But it is weird when you experience it, and it's more of like I feel like it feels like a gut punch sometimes to know that I'm being assessed and my worth is being assessed. And
Yes.
and sometimes as well, I look at the person, they don't even realise they're doing it. As you say,
it's unconscious, I think, a lot of the time. And the scary part of the unconsciousness is the, can I say this?
If you say it and you regret it, I can cut it out.
Is the, okay, if you're under the male gaze and they're assessing your value and your worth, and then they determine that you're not worth something, it's the anger that comes secondary to that that's really disarming and really uncomfortable. The sneering condescension.
Yeah.
And anger, you can feel it sometimes and it's palpable. And for me, I experienced that as little digs constantly, all the time, that nobody else could pick up on because it's just a joke.
Because sometimes people think, you say male anger, male violence, people think punching holes in drywalls.
Yeah.
They think, shouting at waitresses and bar staff, because that's, I think, the most obvious way we recognise it in society. But there are so many more coded ways of misogynistic violence.
Yeah.
And it can be, as you say, in those little digs, in wearing down your confidence, gaslighting you, making you feel like your thoughts and feelings aren't valid, or you're making things up in your head, and experiencing that over time is so like berating on the soul, I would say. Because you do get to this point where it feels uncomfortable. It's creating a tense and like a hostile environment. And that is, wouldn't say it's worse than experiencing violence, but it is another form of experiencing violence.
I mean, I think it's the thin end of the wedge, isn't it? So thick end of the wedge, you have the actual violence. Thin end of the wedge is the comments, the denigration, the mocking, endless ridicule. And it's difficult for other people to see and recognise and intervene to protect you, So I'll give some examples, things that I haven't really spoken about before. For example, in the house, there was somebody that would sing a song about everyone in the house, and everyone had a line. And it was mocking of a few people. It was kind about a few people. But the line about me that was mocking, there was a couple of the boys that would stand up and start jumping up and down and high-fiving whenever it got to my line. And nobody else got that response. So that was one thing. There was another time when somebody had been given a task where they had a megaphone, and it was all, should have been lighthearted. But I'm finding myself getting singled out. This person has a script to read a chant, and the housemates have to sing back the chant. But the person with the megaphone added in a line about Ali is boring, and had all of the housemates in the house chanting, Ali is boring. And these were experiences that I was having all day, every day. Jokes, just lighthearted jokes that were sold as lighthearted jokes, but I knew there was anger behind them. And I knew that they were coming from a place of just being disliked. So I knew that they weren't jokes. So but I had nobody in my corner to be like, right, leave her alone now. And I did go to the diary room and I said to them, I'm at my capacity for what I can tolerate. From one person in particular at this point who was making these jokes at me constantly, all day, every day. And they said to me, and the reason they didn't intervene is because they also thought it was jokes and it was all lighthearted banter. And they said, oh, maybe they have a crush on you, or like maybe it's just a joke, it's all lighthearted. And then later on, this person ended up exploding at me in a row. And I went back to the diary room and I said, I told you. They were angry at me and I've been feeling it for weeks, and I asked for help. And there was no intervention, and there was no intervention from other housemates either. And I just had to take it and not react, because if I reacted, I was the problem. And every time I reacted to anything in defense of myself, it was like I'd murdered someone's kitten. It like anyone could say or do whatever they wanted. There was people, any view that I expressed, there were other people expressing the same views. But when I said something, people reacted really badly to it.
Yeah. And I feel like There is that quote, I think it might be from Taylor Swift, or she might have stolen it from someone else, but it was, a woman can't react, she can only overreact. And it kind of feels like when you try to, not even just your scenario, but women in general, when you try to voice hey, I feel a certain way about this, I feel there might be misintent here, or this might be going a certain way. If we don't intervene now, if we don't take action now, if we don't say something now, and you're kind of thinking, oh, you're overreacting.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm not, because I can feel it. And I can feel it in my chest. I feel it in my intuition. And I'm trying to stop it from getting to a point where it does blow up.
Yeah.
And when it does blow up, everyone goes, oh, well, where did that come from?
Yeah. And I was watching things and sitting back and not reacting a lot of the time. And because I didn't want to say anything unless I was wholly certain that what I thought was happening. Because I had in my mind, I can't just be in there, you know, accusing someone of being misogynistic or homophobic. Like, these are big labels to throw around. So I didn't really say that in the house. But what you saw of me instead is saying things like, I'm just not sure about this person, or I'm not sure about the authenticity of this interaction. I tried to keep it really neutral so as not to be inflammatory, so I could still have conversations that I hoped would resolve issues. But there was no resolution in some of the conversations. And again, this is a situation where, you know, 2-hour arguments would be whittled down to 2 minutes for the show. There's just a lot missing. And now I'm being very loose-lipped because I haven't talked about any of these things.
Like, it's all coming up now.
But I kind of feel like, I guess I'm at a point now where I'm like, I've heard so much. I've heard so much come out of the mouths of people that I shared that house with about me. And I've been so quiet. And I could sit here for hours and like give tons of receipts about things like I've just shared with you. I've been really trying not to do it, but I think I'm just a bit fed up, actually. And I think in my mind, I'm toying with this idea of, you know, is it taking the high ground by not responding, or are you just letting people stand with their foot on your neck, you know, when there's things that are happening that were tricky, difficult. It's
such a fine line to walk as well. And I think when it comes down to it, the reason they are still talking about you while they're using your name in particular is because your name gets clicks. At the end of the day, that's what it is. There is some kind of feeling there is some kind of, they feel a type of way about you, whatever, for whatever reason it is. But at the end of the day, your name gets clicks. And I think you see that with everything. And I do, like, I really empathize actually with your balance of, am I just letting them walk all over me, or am I taking the higher ground?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that at the moment.
I don't have an answer for you either. There are scenarios where I look back and I think, there's some scenarios I look back on and I think, oh, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut on that one and protected my peace that day. And there's some scenarios I look back on and I think, I wish I'd let you fucking have it. Do you know what I mean? Because there are some things where I think, oh, I really could have put you in your place there. And that even now, sometimes I really have to weigh up, is it worth it? Should I go off? Should I not? And you have to, like, balance that intuition. But it's such a weird world to navigate. And you went on the show to chase joy and to try something new. And you've come out having to basically manage yourself in this way. Probably in a way that you probably have had to do that in, like, real life outside of, you know, social media and stuff like that before. But now it's on such a bigger scale where it has such a bigger impact. And you're now navigating the world in a completely different way. And you're navigating a whole new world as well. Moving on from Big Brother, because I know obviously you have so many other passions outside of Big Brother, outside of the show, but that is obviously where we all grew to know and love you. But one of your biggest passions is obviously talking about neurodiversity, about ADHD in particular, isn't it? I just want to learn a little bit more actually about, like, your experience with ADHD and your kind of, like, interest within that sort of space, because you're a forensic psychologist, right?
Yeah, I'm a forensic psychologist. That's what I qualified in. I've worked in criminal justice and mental health for, you know, the last 2 decades pretty much. My interest in ADHD, autism, neurodiversity came out of my own experience, and that's a very recent journey of discovery that I'm on at the moment, because in my work I trained to assess for autism and I trained to assess for ADHD. And I'm looking at these assessments and I'm thinking, the call is coming from inside the house because I thought everyone did this. Why is this part of this criteria? You know, and there's a lot of people in prisons where I was working just before I went into Big Brother who are neurodiverse that are not getting the support they need. And so I skilled up in that area to try to offer a more complete assessment of the people that I was working with at the time. And then obviously I went into the house, I spoke about my experiences, and then since then I've been invited to talk about my experiences more because it's an area that people are learning more about. We're hearing more about neurodiversity, obviously, and there's so much that comes with that. You know, the pushback from the government in terms of labeling this idea of overdiagnosis or misdiagnosis as like a justification for reducing support or funding. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm finding a niche now that I can talk about, that I experience and that I have. I'm trying to find ways to create content around it, but I have ADHD, so that's really hard, and my brain doesn't always allow me to do that.
So funny, we was having coffee before, and I was like, oh, here are a couple of suggestions. If you want them, feel free to take or leave them. And you were like, yeah, I know. I just need to do it.
I know. And that's why this morning I posted a story in my Uddy, because I was like, all I've been thinking to myself the last 2 weeks is, people have asked me a question about L Vance. Answer the bloody question, Ali. But in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I need to set the camera up, and I need to do this, and I need to get the sound right, and I need to make sure I'm like up and ready and dressed that day. And then I was like, I'm not going to do, like, I'm struggling to do everything else in my day. So let me just put a story up to answer the questions that I keep getting asked. And that's what I did. And I think that's the approach I'm going to have to take, is that, you know, if my phone's in my hand, I'm just going to have to do a bit of a story around it, because I get asked questions all of the time, and then I'm like waiting for the perfect environment to be able to feed this information back. But it's, you know, it's something that I think I've enjoyed learning more about on my own journey to hopefully offering a bit of representation or insight for other people as well.
Yeah. And it is really valuable. I mean, it made me laugh when you said there about the call coming from inside the house. So my degree's in psychology as well. And you get to pick the modules that you do.
Yeah.
I picked the autism spectrum module, and a few of my friends also picked it. And most of my friends all did psychology as well. So we'd take up a whole row in the lecture hall, and we'd be sitting there. Sometimes they'd say certain things, and all of a sudden I would just feel every single one of their heads turn around and look at me, and I'd be there like,
hi.
Like, why are you looking at me?
That's me.
And I sat there like sweating, like everyone's looking at me right now. And I was like, the call is coming from inside the house. And I don't have a diagnosis, but it is very much common knowledge within inside, I think, my friendship group, and people who know me are like, we kind of assume, we have an idea. And I'm like, do you know what? I've always toyed up. I'm like, should I go maybe try and get assessed? But as you say, the landscape and things right now, it's so scary.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think obviously with being a physically disabled woman myself as well, I'm thinking like, I don't know if I would have it in me to navigate that landscape. And I feel really sorry for people who are really struggling. And first of all, might not even know that it's uncommon to struggle with this thing.
Yeah.
Because I have so many friends who didn't even realise that their ADHD was impacting their day-to-day lives, and then suddenly they get medicated and they're like, oh, I didn't realise I was actually able to do this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it changes their whole life when that support is there. But I think a big problem we're seeing right now, not even just with neurodiversity, but with mental health in general, is a lot of people are going about their day-to-day life not knowing they need support.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like it's that keep calm and carry on British kind of mentality, isn't it?
But also the not real. I think for neurodiversity specifically as a separate sort of diagnostic category to other mental health concerns, which might be more obviously impactful to your everyday functioning, you get used to living your life, and you don't realise that not everybody feels like that. Not everybody struggles to wake up in the morning and think, what do I need to do today? Some people just get up and do it. Like, wow.
Trying to go on a day out with friends who don't itinerary by at least each quarter of an hour, it sends me into cardiac arrest every single time. And I'm like, I have to write an itinerary, even just for an every day to day, but I also have to make my itinerary backwards from the time I want to go to bed. And my friends were just like, we'll go here and then we'll see what we can do. And I'm like, no.
You'd lose me. I'd wander off somewhere. Get distracted.
Like, we are not doing that.
I have to have a mental plan of my day at the start of the day. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And I will get into some sort of catatonic freeze state where I just don't know what to do. And it's really strange, waking up to the realization that not everybody feels like that.
Yeah. Suddenly realizing that, maybe my brain does work a bit differently.
Yeah.
And because there are so many misconceptions on what autism is, what ADHD is, and especially when it comes to the difference between in genders. And the way that I grew up thinking about autism, ADHD, it was so different to how I now see it and I now understand it.
Yeah.
And like the way that it is so, missed, I think, in women and in girls in particular.
Absolutely,
because it's thought of as like a boy thing.
Naughty boys with ADHD. That was the stereotype when I was growing up. So, I mean, there was no way it would have been picked up for me. And I did very well at school. So it didn't impact me in that environment. It's later in my life where I felt more impacted, actually. The structure of school worked really well for me.
I loved the structure of a school day. I loved it so much.
I did as well. And the way the learning was delivered, I really enjoyed. It was more sort of university age that I really started to struggle. Things took me a lot longer. But yeah, I guess it has been important for me to start thinking about and talking about these things, and I'm working out what I can do with it. I wanted to start, my brother was neurodivergent. I've talked about that on Big Brother as well. The loneliness epidemic in people with autism, and the idea that suicide is the second biggest killer of people with autism is so shocking and so desperately sad to me. I felt that maybe that was an area of work I wanted to move into. So thinking about how to create socially inclusive spaces for people on the autistic spectrum so that we can start combating some of this kind of loneliness epidemic that exists in this community.
Yeah. You mentioned your brother there, and you mentioned obviously the issue of loneliness in people with autism on the autism spectrum. And if I'm right in understanding, you lost your brother to suicide.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind talking a little bit about your experience with that and just what he was like as a person? Because I always think this when people talk about how they've lost someone, we normally talk about what took them, why they're not here anymore. And I think that's important to do, especially with topics like this, but also as well, like, you obviously have a whole life, a whole other memory of your brother as well. And it'd be great to know a little bit more about him and who he was.
Yeah, so his name was Mike. He died in Christmas 2022, so not so long ago. He lived over in Bristol, so he was quite far away, but we had quite a lot of contact. And I was very close to him. We were quite close in age, so we were only 20 months apart. We used to joke that we were twins, and he was really excited when I got my ADHD diagnosis because he was like, yes, we're the same. And he was... When he was little, he was just so cute and funny. His sense of humour was so ridiculous. And it's so nice to be asked about him in a way that isn't so sombre. But I guess most of the reason that people, want to hear about him is because there's something around suicide awareness that's really helpful. He was all these things. He was creative. He was a writer. He did a lot of kind of artwork. But he was somebody that people didn't understand readily, and I think people were scared of him because he was strange and unusual sometimes. And he was also very difficult to be around. He struggled a lot, and he didn't like to accept help, which is very difficult for me because I try and force help on people. And we sometimes clashed around what might be helpful for him in terms of access to therapies. And he had one idea in his mind, and he was very clear on that. But he was very spiritual as well. I think his decision to take his life was something around, it was something philosophical in it. It wasn't necessarily an act for him of, extreme desperation. It was about, do you know what, like, he believed in something else and he wanted to be there and not here. He really struggled with the injustice in the world. Yeah. And was deeply affected by, I guess everything that we have to watch on the news every day. Injustice, sadness.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for him.
And that was a big part of who he was, obviously. And I know a sense of justice is a big part of people with autism, people on the autism spectrum. Thinking about him and who he is, and then thinking about where you are now and navigating this life, this platform, and thinking about what you want to do moving forward. Is he a big part of what you want to do?
I mean, he's a big part of everything that I do. Like, even in Big Brother, when I was struggling, I was talking to him in my head, Where I'm at the moment, grief is such a difficult thing. And I feel that I had an awareness of grief before I lost my brother, just through my work and the people that I've been around in my life. But there was so much that caught me by surprise in the suffering that happens when you lose someone, physical health symptoms that come. Like when my brother died, I was in so much pain in my body. Like I went back to work quite quickly, and it's a very desk-based job. This is just one example. And I couldn't sit at my desk because my muscles hurt so much. And I'm like trying to prop myself up with pillows. And apparently that's because you're just so tense and you don't realize. So all the muscles in my body were like permanently pulled, had headaches all the time. And I just entered like a dissociative fugue really for about a year. And I get waves of like sadness and waves of like a real determination to grab life and live it. And I think something that I find frustrating in my grief journey, if we can label it that quite cornerly, is that, and I was talking about this to my girlfriend the other day, I said very openly when I went into Big Brother, I'm doing this because I want to have opportunities for joy. I realised after I lost my brother that I was in a state of despair and that I wasn't going to get better by thinking my way through it. I had to put things in my life that might spark joy and that might help me to move forward. But I keep doing these things and then, you know, grief goes up and down. At the moment, I'm in a bit of a down phase with it because I'm having to process the fact that you put these things in your life to spark joy, you do cycle back to feeling absolutely diabolical each time, you know, and it's that, oh, for fuck's sake, like, it's almost I'm like really trying.
Yeah, you're like, I'm doing everything I can, and it's almost like this thing has got its grip on you.
Yeah.
And you have this constant battle of having to try and move forward. There has to be, sometimes you feel like constant momentum.
Yes.
In order just to stay stable.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's tiring.
It's really tiring. And I'm scared to stop sometimes. When I do stop, I crash out quite a lot. And it's just, I'm processing now in the kind of second year on from losing him that I might not always be able to just keep putting things in my life to distract myself or keep myself happy. I might actually just have to move through these moments of sadness and let them be. And I'm a really big believer in not whitewashing awful experiences and silver lining every awful experience, because you have to be in your suffering and there's a time and a place for that. And if you don't, it's going to pop out as a hernia or something later on, you know, like you have to go through it head first. So I really believe that. But it's a real balance then of, but don't stay there too long because you still got to live. And that's the balance that I'm struggling with at the moment, is that kind of processing the fact that I'm not going to be able to escape this feeling. I'm just going to have to live with sometimes diabolical despair and sadness and hopelessness. And this feeling that if something sad happens in my life, it triggers other sad feelings because they all sort of interconnect. And I think, what now?
Something else.
Yeah.
But
I try to just let myself feel it as best I can, and try to find reasons to be happy and keep going. And I guess that's all we can do. I'm not an expert on surviving grief. This is the thing, isn't it? Anyone who's had a bereavement, you have no choice. People say you're strong. You don't have any choice. You sink or swim. You're there. It's happened, you know.
I really felt like that. I think my biggest grief I probably experienced is actually grief for myself when I became disabled. That's probably my biggest experience with grief. And it really is that having to, sometimes I still experience things like, I had like an awful experience with accessibility the other day, and I had to give myself a moment to be like, that's really shit. And I hate that I'm excluded in that way. I hate that I have to experience that. I hate that I had to miss out on this thing. And not only that, I then felt like a burden on my friends because my friends could go do this thing. And I have to just sit there and go, that's awful.
Yeah.
But someone's got to get this lift fixed. And unfortunately, it falls to me to advocate and to get this done. And it is that balance of letting myself feel that, but also not sit there, not wallowing it. And that's hard at the same time when something like that happens, which seems unconnected, but it is connected via the web of ableism. When something like that happens, and then I think about the relationship that I lost because when I became disabled. I think about the friends who no longer spoke to me when I became disabled. I think about all of the horrible ableist comments I've received over the years and things like that. And then sometimes it feels like there's so much going on, and I think I don't want to get caught up in all of that. But every time something happens, you can't help but think of everything else that you've been through and all of those other feelings. And as you say, you do have to put things in your life. You have to put things in your life that do spark joy, and you have to really chase it. And that was kind of that's why we end every podcast episode. We go, how are you chasing joy this week? Because I love to remind people that you have to actively chase joy throughout your life. Even if it's in like, do you know what? I'm going to take the long walk home from work today because it's a nice sunny day outside, or I'm going to get up a bit early and treat myself to a nice coffee before work, or whatever big or small way it is. You do have to actively seek joy out in your life. And there is so much joy out there. But it's just reminding yourself to look for it and to know how to look for it as well, because for every single person it's going to look different.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of the things I get joy from, people would look at and go, well, that's fucking boring. Like, I ain't doing that, do you know what I mean? And that's brilliant, because joy looks different for every single person, but you just have to know what it looks like for you, and that's really, really hard. But then obviously, you know, speaking about your brother being such a big driving force for you and everything you've been through, even just the last 2 years with losing your brother and then going Big Brother, and then, as you say, all these experiences that's followed it after, do you have an idea of what is next for you? Or are you kind of in a space where you think, there's so much I want to do that I don't know how to do any of it?
A bit of that. I'm just trying out different things. I feel that there's a space for me with, you know, a foot in my experience of working as a psychologist, but also now having a platform and a voice, and hopefully being able to use it for some good. So mental health advocacy, neurodivergence, thinking about the loneliness epidemic that we were talking about before. If I can find a way to spin all these plates at the same time, that's what I'll do. But watch this space.
Yeah.
We'll see how that forms.
Sometimes you've got to let a few plates fall in order to spin a really good one, is what I've learned.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, let a few plates fall and then you'll work out which plates you really want to hold up. I think sometimes is a good way to navigate that. Speaking that of someone who has like massively burnt out this year, and I've had to learn which plates I can like physically, because you've only got so much to give. But I do think you have a lot to give. I think there is so much room, because I've seen so many creators over the year. I've seen so many people come and go or stay around and do amazing things with their platform, and, you know, be able to really reach communities that really need connection. And I think you do have so much to give those communities, which I think now more than ever really need that connection. But ending the podcast obviously with the final question of how are you chasing joy this week?
Okay, a bit of a weird one.
Love that. Weirder the better.
I mean, it's not kooky weird, so I've just set that up to be really exciting when it isn't. But I'm trying to find joy in getting fit again.
Love.
Because I have not been very active. I've not been moving my body. I've not been eating well. I mean, I haven't had water for about 7 working days. I'm just not looking after myself.
Do you know what? I'm looking down at that glass that I got you and you've not touched it
Still
all
full.
once. Yeah.
Still full. My body doesn't want that. It wants 20 cups of coffee. But we're not listening to my body. Mm-hmm. We're listening to brain and common sense and trying to make better decisions. And I'm trying to find joy in that. I went for a run with my dog this morning. It was awful. She got overexcited and started jumping up and down, biting me. So, yeah, we'll try the run without the dog next time. But, yeah, that's what I'm trying to find joy in this week, and hopefully for other weeks, and it won't just be an ADHD fad. Yeah.
It always makes me laugh though when I hear like neurotypical people or like people who are just like very attuned to their body say things like, listen to your body. And I'm like, my body wants to drink 5 coffees in a row and then crash out in bed. I can't listen to my body because we're not in tune in that way.
No, same. My body craves blueberry flavoured battery acid that I inhale. Mm-hmm. I have to stop listening to what my body wants and start reading a book or listening to a nutritionist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's that nuance in that, isn't it? Where I think, I'm like, listen to your body. And I'm like, not me, girl. I'm not that woman, trust me.
Not when you're dopamine chasing and you want like an unhealthy amount of caffeine.
I feel like my body, my brain and my heart all have to do such synchronized work in order to be able to have like a functioning healthy lifestyle. It's not enough to just listen to my body.
Oh God, no. I have to fight what my body wants.
Yeah, sometimes listen to your body. No, sometimes I'm fighting my body in like a healthy, productive way, because it wants things that it shouldn't want all the time. Get out of bed.
Yeah.
Me, not you. I'm like, not giving you health advice.
We start telling each other off, get out of bed.
No, but like, sometimes I need that. Sometimes I need someone to be like, hey, look, come on, you've been rotting a little bit too long.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's allowed a lie in here and then, but you need to get the fuck up kind of thing.
100%.
Well, it's been lovely having you on, Ali.
Thank you
so much. I feel like I've had such an insight into you and the crazy little world that you have found yourself kind of thrown into. But I'm really excited to see where you go and the work that you're going to do going forward.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.